Hi. So I want to ask you a really important question, and that is, do you believe trauma is part of your current illness? So some people have childhood traumas. They've had terrible things happen to them. They've witnessed events, they've done things. They have these traumatic histories that these emotions that could still be trapped in the bodies. That wasn't me. Although what happened to me during my illness was traumatic, I didn't have prior, and I don't have prior childhood traumas. So maybe they're a part of your illness, or maybe they're not. And maybe you're confused about it because it's like, well, I dealt with that, I'm not sure. Now I have this illness, whatever. But let me just ask you, let me tell you what trauma is. Because for the longest time, I was confused about what trauma is. And most people think of trauma as a traumatic event that happens. Something that happens to you, or a situation, or something that you witness that is traumatic, right? You live in a war zone, you're abused as a child, you see somebody get shot. Okay, those are traumatic things for sure. But that's not trauma. Trauma is what happens inside yourself. And that is basically when you now, because of something, you have a disconnect from yourself. So you're now disconnected from your true self because of something. So that's just a traumatic event, and sometimes people are traumatized by something and sometimes people aren't. But what trauma truly is a disconnect from yourself. You feel disconnected now from who you truly were. Something changes your worldview. Something changes your person. You feel shame or guilt or a disconnect of yourself. And that's what true trauma is. And I definitely lived disconnected, completely 100% disconnected from myself from the moment that my trauma and my illness started until years. And even part of me now is still somewhat disconnected and traumatized. Because when your worldview of something changes, when you separate and disassociate from yourself in order to self-preserve or stay alive or bury a feeling or allow that shame to set in, push down your emotions, disconnect from the painful part because it's too overwhelming. Those are traumas. So now that I've explained it a little, ask the question again, do you think that trauma is part of your current illness? And if it is, you are not going to get well unless you heal the trauma. Okay, so I'm not saying that it wasn't a physical problem. You got hit by a car and your arm got crushed and now you have a physical illness. But you're not going to completely heal unless you deal with the trauma, right? Some events and some circumstances, even the most horrific ones, we don't separate from ourselves. We come into ourselves. We don't feel traumatized by them. Sure, they're traumatic, but they don't cause personal trauma inside us. And something subtle can cause trauma, and something large can cause trauma. But it's how you react and how you disconnect from your own self to self-persevere, and what you carry with you. Emotions, fears, shame, guilt, sadness, a stuffing down of feelings. It's these type of things that are the trauma themselves, that reside within your body. So if this is part of your current illness, then please know that while you're also feeling physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, you have to address the trauma. Okay, so I'm not going to go further here or go further into how we can do that, but just know that that will be part of your healing journey. And if this resonates with you, then you need to look into that.